Hello everyone and welcome back to AustinPlus, where today we are finally talking about the Supergirl film that was released in June. And wow. I mean, forget about your bright skies and comforting smiles of Metropolis, because the Girl of Steel is officially crashed into the big screen with a chip on her shoulder. Now, that's a story I really enjoyed. But does Craig Gillespie's gritty spacefaring epic actually hit like a supernova? Or does this punk rock anti-hero leave the DC universe stranded in cosmic dust? So today we are talking about my thoughts, personal thoughts, as well as others on the Supergirl film. Now, I'll preface, I really enjoyed this film. I said this in a video not too long ago. I really enjoyed the Supergirl film, and I don't like what's happening with it. So without further ado, let's get into it. There are two main characters that stood out for me. One of them is an honorable mention. First of all, I'll start off with, obviously, goes without saying, Supergirl. Millie Alcock's delivery of, was a brilliantly grounded performance of Kara Zor-El. And it was so refreshing sense of, like, world wariness and edge. And even if you weren't the biggest fan of Ruthie's character, like me, Millie definitely elevates every scene that she shares with her by injecting that like pair of sharp, protective energy, and her dry, like, comedic timing and raw, unpolished grit does make this iteration of the Girl of Steel, or Supergirl, feel like a deeply compelling, complex, like an anti-hero rather than a standard squeaky clean savior like Superman. That's why I'm going to talk about a comparison to This Is Superman, because if you know, I didn't enjoy that film. Might go back and watch it, but I think this version of Supergirl, the gritty anti-hero type story, is good, and that's why I really stuck with it. I love anti-hero stories, and it's not all about like it's not all black and white, good and bad, hero and villain. It's very it blurs the line, and that's why I think I really like this film. And that also can be said for Lobo's character. Jason Momoa's absolute powerhouse debut as Lobo injects the movie with an unmatched explosion of chaotic, heavy metal, like, fun, and we've all wanted him as Lobo. It's so like here. He carries a roaring, larger-than-life swagger that basically completely commands the screen whenever he was on, whenever he was there. I think his story as the Immortal Man is one of the best comics. It is so Jason Momoa for him to play, but I think he really does perfectly embody the unhinged space mercenary from the comics. His allowed unpredictable chemistry with Millie as like cynical Kara does serve as a massive highlight. They definitely do like bounce off each other in terms of insults and jokes, but it turns their cosmic brawls into some of the most memorable and entertaining parts of the entire film. As much as he didn't get as much screen time, I do think there's a reason for that, which I'll get on into a little bit. I think all of those, I'm going to say 13 minutes that he was on screen, I think are by far the most memorable. As I said, I didn't like Ruthie's character. She really annoyed me. I think closer to the end, I definitely appreciated her character, but I didn't like Ruthie, and she just got a bit annoying. That's all. Now, the bus rider is probably my is my honorable mention. The bus rider translator, I couldn't find an image, which pissed me off, but it's from this very scene. He's voiced instantly recognizable, as he is the deadpan charm of Seth Rogen, and the tiny alien bus rider translator is an absolute scene stealer during this chaotic galactic commute. And I think tasked with managing translation chaos aboard the intergalactic transport shite, the character definitely provides some of the sharpest, most laugh out loud situational comedy of the entire film. He was memorable, very memorable. I definitely think it's a James Gunn thing for him to do, to add a character like that, even though this is not even directed by James Gunn, but it was definitely wonderfully weird. And its addition to that perfectly textured movies of cosmic underworld vibe, proving that even the briefest side characters, minimal characters for that matter, can still leave a massive impression in this DC universe. That's what I think people are really massively overlooking. Now, those are my best characters. Yes, there wasn't a lot. I didn't want to put the big bad because he was a good villain, but I hated him to the point where I didn't want to, like, actually remind myself of how much I hated him. And it's not because of the actor. I think the actor, very good. The character arc, good. But I hated his actions as a villain. I hated the villain, not the the performance. That's what I'm trying to say. But now we are on to best moments, as always. Now this is actually, surprisingly, in chronological order of the film. So buckle in. So first of all, the very first scene, maybe 10 minutes in, where the drunken bar fight for the sword, when it's Supergirl's 23rd birthday or something like that. This scene definitely reflects highlights of, like, Craig Gillespie's direction by leaning directly into the movie's distinct gritty tone, where Millie's Kara Zor-El is, like, completely unpolished and deeply jaded. I think, like, drinking away her frustrations on the Red Sun planet, where she can actually feel the effects of the alcohol, I think was something they explored quite well. Obviously, the effects of different suns. And Kara's messy, uncoordinated brawl to recover the stolen blade highlights her fierce stubbornness over pure just physical superiority, because then at this point, she does not have her powers. It does serve as a incredibly refreshing subversion of the typical pristine superhero archetype that we usually see, like we did with Superman, showing a very raw and vulnerable side to the character that is set entirely apart from her cousin Clark. And that's why I resonate with this film more than I did with that one, but I am going to give that one a second go, because I have watched this film twice, but I haven't watched Superman twice, so there you go. Secondly, I would say Kara's first exposure to the yellow sun, they didn't underplay that. As much as she said, oh, I love being on the red sun planets, you feel more human, you're normal, you're yourself. But when she has when she's exposed to the yellow sun and she has powers, that shows that as much as she wants to feel human, she isn't, and that she will still plummet you into 1,000 planets if she has to. And I think this moment functions as a very visually spectacular and emotional turning point, because capturing that breathtaking awe of, like, the cosmic rebirth of Kara as she, like, got taken out of the what do you call it, the range of the sun, and then obviously she was, like, frozen in space, and then finally got exposure to the yellow sun. Now, this does also beautifully illustrate some juxtaposition to later on in the film, but I'll get onto that in just a wee bit. But I think the way they display the suns and how important they are, the radiant cinematography of all of that, I think shows, like, it does give off the scientific side of a Kryptonian, the cells of her body absorbing the solar radiation, instantly shifting the power dynamics of herself into a godlike strength, and returns in full force to obviously save the bus from being pirated. I think this is a defining moment in her character arc in this film. Not her character as a whole, but her character arc in this film. It is, I think, a defining piece of comic book cinema that I think perfectly adapts the spirit of, like, the source material, which is Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow. Now, people were a bit confused because Superman was actually originally supposed to be Superman Legacy, and then Supergirl was supposed to be called Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, both based off the comics. Now, they are, and this story is ripped straight from the comic, and the first one isn't. It was a bit different. Now, when I was talking about the juxtaposition, you obviously have that exposure to the yellow sun, but later on in the film, when they're on a planet, I don't remember the name, they have two suns, a yellow and a green, and the green sun has the same energy output as Kryptonite, and that weakens her. I think that exposure type thing was very good to see. You can see the different types of solar radiation that affects a Kryptonian, so you get that science bit as well, which also then does perfectly encapsulate the depiction of the story of Krypton or Argo City. But that's for later. Now, the arm wrestling bar fight, or slash the introduction to Lobo, I thought was quite iconic as well. It shows that chaotic, rowdy version of her. I think this whole sequence of when they're on that planet is it's a very burst of fun. Obviously, it introduces Jason Momoa as Lobo in the most fittingly way possible. Watching a deceptively slight, like Millie Alcock casually shatter a massive alien's like hand in arm wrestling table before the tavern basically erupts into total anarchy, I think is so fitting, especially for the tone that this film had set at this point of the film. It shows the like stellar balance of dark comedy and heavy hitting action, and I think they did that perfectly. The subsequent like arrival of Lobo does obviously complete the signature macho swagger and chaotic energy, and creates an instantly electric dynamic that basically carries the rest of the movie's spacefaring adventure. And that's why I quite like this scene. And also, Lobo, you have my heart, mate. Like you I'm confident in saying that. Now, what I was talking about with the depiction story of Krypton's Argo City, I think it was a good origin story that we kind of got with in Superman, but not to this extent. Don't get me wrong, I had to do a lot of reading of the subtitles, but also that body language, you could see it all, and it was such a crucial moment for their stories. The haunting flashbacks to slow death of like Argo City does provide an essential emotional and psychological anchor that justifies Kara's hard-edged, cynical demeanor throughout the whole of the film. Unlike Kal-El, who left Krypton as a baby, Kara's perspective definitely captures the agonizing trauma of watching her mother and citizens slowly perish from kryptonite radiation inside of a drifting force field encased of chunk of rock. Now, in the trailer, I genuinely thought this was like the first arrival of Brainiac, and when I first watched it, I was like, oh, we're gonna see it's Brainiac that did this. It was perfectly setting up Man of Tomorrow. They didn't, and I'm happy for it. I'm very happy for that. Now, the stark, like, visually arresting imagery of this doomed space colony contrasts beautifully with Earth's vibrant yellow sun, which obviously she ends up going to. And I think this turns her tragic origin into a deeply compelling piece of historical fiction in DC Universe. Anyone that says anything differently is fundamentally incorrect. Now, the final scene I think that was very good was obviously the final battle. I think this was very, very well put together. The cinematic climax delivers an absolute punch of adrenaline as Kara finally dons her iconic crest of the Supergirl suit. Now, here's something I want to state. People were pissed off that we didn't get much of the Supergirl suit. That didn't bother me. If you find the underlying like greatness of this, that won't bother you. She unleashes her incredibly unrestricted power against Crim's like heavily armored brigands, and I think that was an amazing. Now, people complain about the needle drop scene. I get it. That's one of the things I was like, bit iffy. However, I do think that this whole cinematic like part was very good, and that it was accompanied by a triumphant swelling score. Maybe not that, but the sequence definitely masterfully balances a high-flying cosmic choreography with shockingly brutal and emotional intensity as she fights to protect Ruthie and then avenge Krypto. That was a great story as well. And I think this sequence definitely reaches an unforgettable peak when Kara makes the dark, complex choice to actually pick up the blade that Ruthie decided to drop and then kill Krim herself. And I think this completely cements this version of the Supergirl as a ruthless survivor who plays by her own rules. But she's also trying to help others. And that is the most compelling like character arc ever. So for those who say they don't enjoy this film, it is because you thought it was going to be exactly like Superman. That's why. It's not. And that's why you don't like it. Now, that's that rant off. What are the chances of a sequel? Let's go do that. Now, I think the chances of a direct Supergirl sequel are somewhat up in the air because it definitely leans toward, I don't know where that would lead, because instead of a Supergirl 2, I think Kara Zor-El is already slated to appear in Superman's Man of Tomorrow. Now, As for a solo project for the main man, or Lobo, a Lobo series or standalone film franchise looks incredibly likely for Jason Momoa, because he has explicitly called this his absolute dream role, and Warner Brothers executives have also explicitly were also wowed by his performance, and that they actively expanded his screen time before release. Now, with Gunn's collaborative studio layout and Momoa's massive enthusiasm to build out a Lobo franchise, the Cosmic Bounty Hunter is practically guaranteed a spin-off to unleash a full rated R version of him. And if you get James Gunn on that, Peacemaker and Lobo, those shows will be levels ahead of the rest, and that, I think that's why they limited his screen time in this film. And that uncensored chaos across the galaxy, let's not lie to ourselves, we all want that. Now, other reviews. I know I've just gone on a bit of a rant, a bit of an angry rant, but this is just from IGN. IGN is always the people I will go to for a review, because they are actually quite level-headed. But IGN says, Millie Alcock is Millie Alcock is great as a Supergirl, carrying the weight of a real trauma and cementing a very cool dynamic with her on-screen cousin, while the alien design and practical makeup effects would make the film a joy to look at. Thank you! Yeah, the aliens, I think the aliens' designs, they were quite funny, and they were all practical makeup effects, which I thought was cool, but some of the aliens look fucking dreadful. But yeah, I do agree. Now here's the one where I'm about to go off, is the comparison to the Superman film. Now, as I said, 2025 Superman established the DCU with a bright, optimistic, and deeply earnest story about hope and belonging on Earth. But Supergirl is the complete opposite. You have you have day, you have night. Same as like that. Supergirl completely flips the script by delivering a gritty, cynical space western. Instead of focusing on a sheltered, overly trusted hero raised by loving parents, this cosmic adventure leans into the raw, unpolished trauma of a survivor who watched her home planet die. And while both films share a very similarly vibrant, visually stunning cinematic aesthetic, Supergirl does trade that lightness of her cousin's journey for very heavy-hitting, edge-of-your-seat space fights. Now, I said this earlier, I'll say it again. Anyone that liked Superman, it made $650 million in the box office to this day. Anyone that liked Superman went into Supergirl and thought it would be the same thing, found out it wasn't, therefore it's shit. That's not how it works. It's not. It's different. If you can't accept that, that's the problem. There you go. Simple terms. Not everything has to be like Superman. So please, stop saying that. So overall, I do apologize for all of that, but overall, my review of this film, after seeing this film twice in theaters, planning on seeing it for a third, because I have problems, I'm completely hooked on this gritty space western aesthetic, and it's boldly subverted the typical squeaky clean superhero formula that we've been taking in for years now. So I really enjoy this. If you had the same opinion about me on Superman, please go and watch this. You'll probably like that. But I'm getting off that because it makes my blood pressure go. But ultimately, Supergirl may not play by the traditional squeaky clean rules of the superhero genre, but Millie Alcock's raw performance and movie's brilliantly gritty space western vibe delivered a bold, bounding, but pushing ride that completely redefines the Supergirl Girl of Steel story in a new cinematic era. So I'm very happy about that. But without further ado, that is the end of today's video. I do hope you all enjoyed it, and if you did, please leave a like and subscribe, and comment what you would like to see on the channel. But I hope you have an amazing day as always, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye bye.